College football playoff predictions. In July? Yes, in July. Let's go. Conference champs. I've got Oklahoma State winning the Big 12. I got Florida State winning the ACC. I got Texas winning the SEC. And I got Ohio State winning the Big 10. But what order do we have them in? I've got the top 4 seeds having first-round byes in this order. I've got Ohio State, number 1 team in the country, entering the playoff, Big 10 champs. The SEC champion Texas, I've got as the number 2 overall seed. Sark just got a raise based on this segment. I've got FSU as the ACC champion, number 3 seed. Feels a lot different than last year already. Oklahoma State, there you go. You win your conference. You're one of the 4 highest-ranked conference champs. You get a first-round bye. You get the 4 seed. So we know that because they won the conferences. This is where it gets really, really interesting because we have 15 to 20 to maybe 25, depending on how optimistic you are, teams that could viably have a path to the playoff. So here's my great unknown. As we dive into teams 5 through 8, these are teams that are going to have not a first-round bye, but they're going to have a first-round game on their home campus. How is the committee going to handle teams like Oregon, who I have playing against Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game and losing? How are they going to handle Oregon? And let's just say Notre Dame sitting there as a 1-loss team and they're ranked 6th or something like that. Does Oregon drop behind them because they went and played a conference title game and lost? Does Ole Miss drop behind Notre Dame, a team that didn't play? Or let's even take a team like Alabama or Georgia or someone like that, who they don't even make the conference title game. They could be floating in that 6, 7, 8 range. Do any of these teams that are already highly ranked, that are ranked above those teams, but they go add an extra loss because they played in their conference title game, is there precedent for those teams dropping below? My feel, because that committee wants to maintain the sanctity and the importance of conference championship games, is they'll be very hesitant to drop these conference title game losers too far. That's my feel. I don't know that. There is no language that is written to guarantee that, but I'm going off that premise. That's why I've got Oregon as the 5 seed. I've got Ole Miss as the 6 seed. Those are Big Ten and SEC championship game losers. I've got Miami, the ACC championship game loser, as the 7 seed. And then I've got Notre Dame. Now again, the thinking there is Notre Dame, let's say it's a 1-loss team. If it's undefeated, maybe a different story. If Notre Dame's a 1-loss team, I think that they're going to keep these conference championship game losers ahead of them. I could be wrong on that, but for broad strokes purposes, looking at it from 5 months out, Oregon, Ole Miss, Miami, Notre Dame, 5, 6, 7, 8. What we know about those teams is they will host playoff games in the first round. Who are they going to play? How do we fill out 9, 10, 11, and 12? Georgia's going to be in this thing. I can see a world where Georgia doesn't win the SEC. I could even see a world where Georgia doesn't play for the SEC championship. I see no world where Georgia doesn't make the playoff. I've got Georgia as my 9 seed. I've got Bama right behind them as my 10 seed. Penn State is in the playoff as my 11 seed. And Liberty, the highest-ranked G5 conference champ, is my 12 seed. Here's what that means for matchups in the first round. That would mean we've got Liberty versus Oregon. And you may remember that from such games as the Fiesta Bowl. It was the Sarah McLachlan special of bowl season. It was a splattering. It was a body bag special. Well, we got Liberty looking to atone, probably as a 3 or 4 touchdown underdog, on the road at Oregon. We got Penn State going down to Oxford, which is lovely in December. Lovely. Penn State at Ole Miss. We got Bama at Miami. Come back to that in a second. And we've got Georgia at Notre Dame. Georgia at Notre Dame is a postcard game. That's incredible. That's, by the way, that's a lot of your fantasies out there. You guys who want to see Southern teams play up north. Well, how about going from Athens to South Bend in the second week or third week of December? There you go. I gave it to you. Immunity. How about that third game there? Alabama at Miami. To my Miami folks down there, how are you going to handle the ticket situation? If you guys get a home playoff game, You got to come through for me. You can't be letting that be like, when the Yankees used to come to Turner Field and 60-40 Yankee fans or Cub fans. You guys got to protect home field. Create home field, first off, and then protect home field. Because if Miami has a home playoff game and they play any of these big national brand teams, there's a risk of those teams doing to Miami what everyone in the SEC does to Vanderbilt. And that's, let's make a weekend of it in Nashville. Let's go take over their stadium. That can't be happening in the playoff. How does this all shake out? Well, here's my Final Four. This is sadistic stuff in this Final Four. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. We've got Ole Miss versus Texas in one side of the bracket, which, yes, is a rematch of the SEC championship game. And on the other side of the bracket, I've got Oregon versus Ohio State, which not only is a rematch of the Big Ten championship game, it's a rematch of the regular season. Those teams, if this piece of paper is right, play 3 times in a season. And at this point, if we were to get these matchups, we would have a very interesting and toxic conversation on our hands about how valuable, how important, or even how necessary conference championship games are. And someone would say, oh, they were very important because look at how much Texas benefited from not having to play. They had a first-round bye. But then there would be another voice that said, yeah, but the result was the same. And then they would say, oh, and by the way, over on the other side of the bracket, ditto. Also, I think you could make a point that Oregon, by losing the Big Ten championship game and having the 5 seed, got themselves an incredibly favorable draw. This 5 seed story is going to be an interesting story to follow. 5 seed does not get a bye, but what the 5 seed gets is a home playoff game in the first round against probably the G5 team. And then they go to the second round and they play the worst team with a bye. So maybe like the Big 12 champ. Oregon just got to the Final Four by playing Liberty and Oklahoma State. Ohio State may have had a first-round bye, but man, Ohio State got the winner of Georgia Notre Dame in the second round. Be that as it may, I've got Ohio State making it, and I've got Texas making it. So Ohio State versus Texas is my national championship game right now. The pressure would be so immense. Even if they get to that point, there would be people saying, if Ryan Day doesn't win this game, this is a failure of a season, which is absurd. But I'm not wrong about that. I'm right that it's absurd, but I'm also right that it would be said. I'd pick them to get it done right now. I'd pick Ohio State to win the national championship over Texas. The powers that be in the television industry would love that Final Four. They would love that championship matchup. They would love to crown that champ. Ohio State, Texas, the best of the Big Ten, the best of the SEC, at least according to these predictions. So in a lot of ways, you'd get through all that mess, and then you'd arrive at the finish line like 7 months after we began. And if this were to go down this way, you'd look at it and you'd say, wow, you expanded the playoff, we gave buys, we gave auto bids, and we ended up with maybe the same matchup we were going to end up with anyway. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe it's a lot messier than that, or maybe it really is that clean. So that's how I'm feeling right now. Of course, everyone disagrees with it. I don't need to know that you disagree with it. I need to know why, and I need to know who you have in their place, and I need to get reasoning. Also, it's July. So if we get through 3 weeks of August and fall camp and we have injuries here and we get good intel there, I may reassess like half of that. I already don't feel good about some of it. But there it is. Ole Miss, Texas, Oregon, Ohio State, your Final Four.